So it didn't happen yesterday, but it did happen this morning. The Israeli cabinet officially accepted the ceasefire, or if I'm more specific, they accepted the first phase of the ceasefire, which includes, of course, the release of the hostages within 72 hours, meaning Monday morning. It includes basically aid going in. It includes the release of terrorists after the release of hostages. We do not have the list of which terrorists will be released still. So there is a lot of specifics we don't have, but the general idea is that this ceasefire is happening. I mean, we already knew it yesterday, but now we have sort of the official, the rubber stamp on it. So this is what we'll discuss today, and we'll also discuss a few other things, especially what it means for the people on the ground, what it means for the anti-Semitic violence that we've seen, if this is the end of it, since there's no longer genocide, as many people have been saying. And we might even talk a little bit about the Nobel Peace Prize that did just happen, and some people are upset about the result. Welcome to the reality show. Joining me today are Marco, Richard, and Jonathan. I'll go to you, Jonathan. You haven't been on yesterday. Were you surprised when you saw the ceasefire is actually happening? And yeah, any of your brief thoughts to start us off?
Well, it reminded me a little bit of that notion from economics. Bastiat talks about what is seen and what is unseen. And what is seen is, I mean, yet to be seen, but ostensibly hostages coming home. What is not seen is the decades now more hostage taking, more violence, more terrorism against Israel. Why? Because the Palestinians, in effect, won. They took on big bad Israel. They got the world on their side, and Israel didn't stand up for itself. And so, the Palestinians have learned a lesson here. They've been taught that, taking hostages really works. I think this puts Americans and Westerners, especially Israelis, at risk all over the world. And when you commit atrocities, you get rewarded with a state and with deals and with all kinds of goodies. So I think it's a real, it's a real shame. Unfortunately, it's hard to say that when you see hostages coming home. This is a shame, but what I'm thinking about is that long-term impact of the fact that the Palestinians won this war.
We have a super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. Yeah, and on some level, I wish it was more of the unseen, because I recently reread Frederick Bastiat essays. So he talks a lot about the unseen is sort of the unseen benefit that we could have had if the money wasn't either taxed or being spent on basically just consumption. But we'll see the negatives of this. We'll see the hostages being taken again. We'll see the I mean even I mean just I think, was it today, this morning, or yesterday, another IDF soldier was killed by a sniper. I think it was earlier today. So we see this happening still, and that will not stop. As we've seen just today, IDF soldier has been killed still, despite the ceasefire.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, it's like, if they really wanted peace, wouldn't they get those hostages out like right now? Wouldn't whoever was holding them would just march them out right now? Get aid helicopters there right now? If the Palestinians really wanted peace, why would there be any delay? 10 minutes delay in returning the hostages that they abducted years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I'll bring up something that Richard hates, and it's the polls. If you asked Palestinians themselves, I think there was one question which was something like, "Do you think there would be peace if all hostages were released?" And I think separate question, "Do you think there would be peace if Hamas got disarmed?" And in both of those, the majority answered no. So they know that. Or at least their belief is that even the hostages were released, there would still be a problem for them, because the idea is not that we want peace. The idea is we want the Jews out, and they understand that keeping the hostages and using the hostages strategically is what gets them to their goal, because their goal isn't peace. Marco?
Yeah, totally. And we've seen how this ceasefire pans out. It's first of all, the IDF withdrew to what's called the yellow line, which is a effectively concentric circle within the whole of Gaza, which cover 53% of the strip. However, most of the centers like Khan Yunis and Gaza City are outside this line. The IDF withdrew between the border with Israel and Gaza City. So that means that the Hamas terrorists, call them Palestinian, Gaza, whatever, it's the same thing, will be able to repopulate, remove back where they came from the urban areas where they've got the caches of weapons and all the tunnels, and effectively regroup, restart again with the intention of, as they promised number of times, carry out another October 7th. So this is just a new starting point. And perhaps they will change the color of the flag, probably not the color, but perhaps the shape of the flag. They might change the acronym that they will go out under, but the modus operandi will be the same. They won't destroy Jews. I mean, the Gazans never recognize the state of Israel in the first place. So that's a statement that we don't want Israel. When they talk about Israel, they talk about the Jews anyway. They don't use the word Israel in the first place because the hate for the Jews and Israel is so embedded in their culture. The Quran itself is obsessed with the Jews, and they follow the kind of religion, the religion that tells them, don't talk to them, just conquer, destroy, and take over. And that's what they're doing. The constitution said it clearly. They got voted with it in 2005. The Gazans are still supporting them despite all the kind of hassle that they've gone through. Hamas caused October the 7th, caused all the death of the civilians in Gaza because they were taken in the crossfire, if you like. They died because of the response of Israel that was trying to defend itself. So all these instances where the Gazans have been suffering under the rule of Hamas, now it kind of be turned on the head because Hamas can say, oh, look, now we have humanitarian aid coming in thanks to us because we managed to keep the Zionists at bay. And now the guns are quiet now thanks to us because we effectively won a victory on Israel. And that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, the support for Hamas, even if the change in Hamas, will be still there. Hamas have seen a slightly dip in popularity within the Gazans. And that's probably why they decided to go for this deal this time. Partially because they lost some of the leaders, partially because of other reasons. But the fact that they lose popularity is probably one of the reasons why they decided to, okay, let's pretend to be in favor of peace. A, because you stop being slaughtered, and B, because they can present themselves as the winning party in Gaza, and their people are actually celebrating their victory, the victory of the Palestinian over the Israeli, who didn't have the confidence and the self-esteem and the selfishness to carry out a proper war, which destroys their enemies.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to sort of the reform Hamas, it sort of reminds me, it will go from death to America and West and Jews, and it will go from death to America and West, Oxford, comma, and Jews. Like that's the difference we are sort of like going for. Richard?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with both what you guys have said, both what Jonathan and Marco have said concerning victory in this. But the question, who won the war, is a muddy one in many ways as well, isn't it? I mean, Israel certainly won a considerable amount of military victories, individual battles, individual military victories, and those include, destroying, the military, the nuclear facilities in Iran, the effects on Hezbollah, the destruction of many of the tunnels, most of the tunnels across Gaza, the pushing back of the Houthis, all of those, and taking out the leadership of all of these Iranian-backed proxies. All of those are relevant military victories. they're battles within a war, aren't they? But if the overall war is what I mean, it's hard to say until we get to the other side of these hostages being released. You cannot say that Israel has met its achieved its war aims, can you? For a start, so we've got to get that side of it first. Sorry,
I just
John.
have to say, I mean, I imagine now like an 11-year-old Palestinian boy who's going to see one of the 250 plus true terrorists that Israel has obliged itself to release coming home, and those who participated on October 7th being called martyrs and being called heroes. And like, what is that teaching now the next generations? It's ensuring that those young people are going to grow up with those values. You know, that was the opportunity to teach them to reindoctrinate them in effect. They've learned exactly the wrong lesson. They've learned, take more hostages, make more war against Israel. Israel's not that strong. And it's philosophically, I feel like it's done even more damage than it's done whether it was 300 or 400 terrorists that have been released.
Yeah, I mean, Richard?
Sorry, I totally agree with you, Jonathan. I think part of it depends on what you think each of the next steps will be, doesn't it? Hostages released, step one. I mean, we can. I'm less interested in the aid going in, obviously. I'm less interested personally in the ceasefire and that kind of stuff. But get the hostages back, step one. Then what happens to Hamas? Do they disarm? Are they properly dismantled? Is there any evidence of that whatsoever? Because they're not big evidence of that, which is what I fully expect. They're not disarming, which is what I fully expect. Will entitle Israel to carry on and go in stronger with the backing of Trump if he's consistent with his message up till now, which is not by any means given. Would it allow Israel to go in harder and stronger? Now, that might lead to an ultimate victory, but we have to recognise, obviously, that all of this ought to have been done the best part of 2 years ago. And it's the delay and the protraction of it and the forward a few steps and the conceding to diplomatic opinion and international opinion everywhere, and then trying to play the altruistic card as Israel is always going to defeat you, and that has led to the protraction of this conflict. So all of that comes into play, I think.
Yeah, I mean, something to think about. And this is when we are talking about sort of did Israel win, right? What were the war goals from the start? It was getting the hostages back home and destroying Hamas. So it was never about reoccupying Gaza, actually ensuring the future, that there will be no future problem. I mean, depends, because when we say Hamas, technically there are like more terrorist organizations in Gaza that are still problem, like the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So it's kind of problem when somebody says Hamas, do you mean like, do we only have problem with this like one terrorist organization? Although when I say it, we usually mean like the whole culture. And that's why the focus doesn't have to be on Hamas. It has to be about the Palestinian culture, because again, Hamas can technically be destroyed. I mean, I don't like, they might, like their leadership is almost gone. They must be on the brink of collapse. But again, if it means that just the specific leadership of Hamas is gone, but the grants and the other terrorist organization pretty much can just take over, then yeah, we haven't achieved anything.
I mean,
Jonathan?
can I just say that the quote from Miss Rand that came to mind as, just thinking about this is, her quote, "In any compromise between food and poison, it is only death that can win. In any compromise between good and evil, it is only evil that can profit." So how do I know that? It's obvious that Hamas won this war. They're the ones that have profited because the good has compromised. And it's so tragic that it's elevated them into a legitimate entity that will continue to menace Israel and the West now for decades to come.
El Rito in the chat says, victory, holy shit. Isn't there still the chance that the ceasefire fails and the military operation continues? On some level, I think this is a cope that I can somewhat understand that people might want to have. The idea is And it even went in my mind, right? Because the first thing that has to happen is the release of hostages. So basically, although IDF is pulling out of the Gaza City, which I think is the most devastating part, the fact is that IDF was going into Gaza City. IDF was going strong into Gaza City. I think this is one of the biggest reasons Hamas was inclined to accept it, because the fact is, if Gaza City were to fall, that would pretty much be the complete occupation of Gaza. So when IDF was in the middle of Gaza City, Hamas did accept the ceasefire, which, yeah, one of the first things that will have to happen is the release of hostages. But even before that, IDF is pulling out of Gaza City. So the idea that hostages will get released and IDF will go back in, I think that would require the balls that Israel simply didn't show it has. And we don't mean in going strong, because Israel can go strong. It can destroy Hezbollah. It can go after Iran, but it cannot go against the public opinion. This is something, or the moral perceived righteousness. This is something that Israel hasn't been able to do. And to accept the ceasefire, get the hostages back, and then pretty much bail out, do not do anything afterwards, and go back into Gaza. I think Israel absolutely, if it could do that, absolutely should. But I don't think will have the strength to do it. Marco, any thoughts on this? Because in a sense, we had this. Anytime a ceasefire happened, we pretty much had this idea. Or anytime there was a deal with Hamas, everybody says, well, if Hamas breaks it, now Israel can go in.
Right? It's like it's only the altruism that says we just keep having to give them one more chance to kill more Israelis, one more chance to murder more Jews. Just keeping them another endless chances, as if they're going to change.
Marco? Yeah, I mean, to be fair, this is just the beginning. Just covers just 4 or 5 of the points of the main 20-point agreement.
Yeah, the first phase.
Yeah. So after the release of the hostages, or the lack of, because we haven't seen them released yet, we will see how Israel behaves. But the point is that by withdrawing from Gaza City, as you said, well, first of all, the occupation that IDF has between the border and the yellow line is mainly desert. There isn't much in there. So you, as I said earlier on, you allow Hamas to take hold the old structures as they were when they left Gaza City in the first place. But the only good thing is that the ground invasion of Gaza City in the first place is a mistake, because you're putting Israeli lives, soldiers' life at risk. I mean, invading Gaza City at this point, it's a massive logistic operation, very, very dangerous, because the terrorists booby trap buildings and all this kind of stuff. There's lots of infrastructure that the IDF has not been able to effectively make secure. The only solution would have been a good old style bombing of Gaza City, flatten the bloody place, and start from scratch. Do not risk more Israeli lives. So in a way, that's a good thing that they withdrew. But it doesn't mean that's the end either. We'll see after Monday, because I think it was the withdrawal to the yellow line that started the 72 hours. That's why it's Monday at noon, the official deadline. And when we see how much, whether Hamas is taken to task, made to follow the agreement as much as Israel is. So, but again, we see on Monday. After that, who knows? We don't know what Hamas will do. We don't know whether Hamas actually will lay their weapons down. As you mentioned yesterday, just before the ceasefire was announced, another IDF soldier was killed. So clearly, they are not in peace mood. The Islamic monsters of Hamas and the Gazans are not willing to get away, letting the Israelis survive. So, and again, they made that clear. But you can only hope that once this phase is implemented, once the hostages are safely back into Israel, as safe as they can be, we'll see some sort of operations that Mossad will do. I hope they're gonna keep doing stuff like the helicopter operation, like the beeper operation. I hope the stuff will still carry on, and they will take Hamas if they don't go with the terms of agreement, physically one by one if they have to, in time. Unfortunately, time is running out because let's not forget Iran is still developing a nuclear weapon. Let's not forget that we're here having this conversation right now, probably just because Israel has pushed back the nuclear program by a few months. But a few months will go very quickly. It's just a matter of time before Iran will become the next obstacle to be overcome, hopefully flattened.
Yeah, I mean, just to throw in one more thing that, yeah, this idea that Hamas can kill an IDF soldier and basically the ceasefire is still in place because, what is Israel gonna do? Like, not pursue the ceasefire? But if Israel were to do something in a similar line, that would be an excuse for Hamas to do something. It reminds me like every time this like onus to be correct is on the West. And the perfect example of this is the Ukraine war. It's like NATO cannot help Ukraine because that puts us in danger of nuclear war. But somehow Russia invading a NATO aspiring nation, a EU aspiring nation, is not putting us in the danger of nuclear war. It's always on the defending side. It's always on the good side that needs to basically, not screw it up because the bad guys will be angry if we do something bad. So if IDF kills terrorists, that might put us in danger of not accepting a ceasefire with the terrorists. But they can kill us. That's okay.
And that's exactly the meaning of the Ayn Rand quote that Jonathan just mentioned. If you start dealing with these people, the only one that comes out badly is the Israeli, the people who actually love life. If you deal with somebody who wants to kill you, and you try and compromise, you're going to get injured only. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right. The message should be Israel is going to flatten you. This is a senseless, unwinnable war. This is a war in which the only option is to lay down your arms and change your ideas. I mean, it took the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to change the Japanese. Aren't they glad that they did? I mean, look, they have become incredibly productive society in the decades to come. I mean, we've talked about this in this channel. I mean, could that ever happen in Gaza? I mean, it could, but they have to change their mentality that, that the Jews are the enemy and the goal is the overthrow of Israel at every turn.
Richard?
One way I look at this is if I ask myself the question, at what point did Israel lose this war? Then I have to go right back, to be honest, because it's prior to October the 7th, to be honest, because it's the failure to identify the morality of altruism being as dominant as it is that played a part in enabling October the 7th to happen in the way that it did. Because, I mean, people working in the kibbutzes were working with Palestinians from Gaza, were coming in. They were using their opportunity to work in kibbutzes in order to gain intel to make the attack more devastating on October the 7th, for one thing. And of course, the endless altruism that Jews have shown towards Palestinians, including the whole disengagement in 2005, and all of that has led to this point. So at what point did Israel lose this war? It's lost this war the entire time that it's failed to identify that as the issue. Because it's not, and even now, at this point we're at now, it hasn't identified that as the issue. Therefore, it's not going to go forward and win. But that doesn't mean that those mistakes aren't rectifiable, or it cannot change, or it cannot see what we're talking about here. It doesn't mean this is set in stone forever and that Israel will always lose. But it does mean that the morality of altruism is what needs to be thoroughly challenged. And that has been, frankly, if I'm honest about it, strengthened in the course of the past 2 years, not challenged. And the effect of that, which Jonathan hinted at earlier, is going to be the danger to Jews in Western countries all over the place. I think that the next phase of this that we're heading into now is the threat to individual Jews in Western countries at any time that they are identified by someone who is taken with the ideology that wants them dead, and is willing to act on it. And there are too many people who adopt that view. So that is definitely a worry. But altruism is stronger than ever, and that is the challenge. And that's an enormous challenge that we'll barely scratch the surface of yet.
Can I
Yeah.
tell a quick,
Sure.
Dana, tell a quick story. This weekend, I was out sitting at a Starbucks outside at still pretty nice out, and there was some hostages posters that had been put up, and a woman in a mask came and tore the posters down. And the woman who was sitting next to me at Starbucks, just another patron, said, "What is that?" And the masked woman said, "I'm tearing down this pro-Israel stuff." And the patron said, "I'm on your side. Good for you. I'm on your side." So, Israel's seen as the enemy, even among the hoi polloi sitting, at an afternoon in Chicago with their Starbucks.
Yeah, in Finchley in North London, a woman was challenged the other day by two Jewish women. A woman was seen cutting off yellow ribbons from the hostage support section in Finchley, I think it was, and she was challenged by those Jewish people. And it turned out that she was also, the woman cutting them off was doing a PhD, all to do with Gaza and all to do with neocolonialism, and all of the kind of stuff that feeds into what universities are also teaching, and all of that. So there are Jews obviously standing up for themselves, and there are non-Jews such as ourselves standing up for Jews in these Western countries. But yes, there's such a surface level of understanding that has painted Israel as the bad guy, and has made people do exactly the kind of thing that you're talking about from your Starbucks example.
And of course, the scandal of hatred, or at least animosity towards Israel, it's also highlighted by headlines like when they talk about Barghouti, they call him like the Palestinian Mandela. It's like, what? Mandela was fighting against an apartheid state, a fascist state, yeah? Yes, he was committing terrorism act, but he was doing to get rid of illegitimate government, effectively. Barghouti is a terrorist. He kills people because he doesn't like their religion. He doesn't like their race. He doesn't like the fact that they're the Democrats, effectively. Seeing the stuff in the West, seeing how people miss the point by so many miles is just incredibly deranged and disheartening.
Yeah, and sorry, just quickly, because I don't know that much about Mandela, but at least my understanding. Do you remember when Mandela started like killing random civilians? No, even when it comes to Mandela's terrorism, I think oftentimes it was state focused. It was focused on like something like holding the regime together. Again, not talking too much, but trying to say that basically like random, like this is what we are talking about with Barghouti. It's violence against civilians any they could find. He was one of the main people behind the second intifada. Second intifada wasn't let's target IDF camps, let's target the occupation zones or whatever you want. No, it's let's find people at buses and blow them up. Let's kidnap anybody we can. Let's torture people. It was an all-out basically war. Chaotic war on pretty much any civilians you could find. So trying to say it as if they should have all gone on out and said the founding father of because even the founding fathers committed in terrorism or whatever you want to call it, which would be again absolutely insane way of comparing it.
Yeah. I'll just another Rand quote that comes to mind. Israel is the sole modern democracy in the Middle East. And Rand has that great quote that she says, "A country that violates the rights of its own citizens will not respect the rights of its neighbors." And the Palestinian regime doesn't respect the rights of its own citizens. There's no freedom of speech or religion or movement or anything in that regime. So, of course, they don't respect the rights of their neighbors, certainly not Israel. Israel is just the opposite. It does respect the rights of its own citizens and its neighbors, which is why it's always been forced to basically respond to attacks and is never the aggressor in any situation.
Yeah, and just earlier we mentioned about sort of the change the Palestinian people can do or do so, and there is this concept which I do not like how it's the name of the concept. It's called rational actor. I'm not sure if it originates in economics or psychology, but basically it's the idea that a person with full or an actor with full information maximizes their profit or their benefit in situation. Now, when it comes to the Palestinian people, again, if you consider them rational actors in this concept, what they have been told, they have been told that if you commit to terrorism, like the first Intifada, like the second Intifada, like the now October 7th, you'll get your terrorist organization will come in, get territory, and will be able to establish itself. If you commit to second Intifada, IDF and Israel will completely pull out of Gaza, won't even talk to you about it. They'll just pull out. They'll take their own people. They almost destroyed their own synagogues. But no, they actually let the Palestinians destroy the synagogues left in Gaza. After October 7, you get the recognition of the Palestinian state. So time after time, the Palestinian people have been told, do not try to build something, simply go and kill Jews. This is the only way you'll get rewarded. Look at their, welfare system incentives. Go and kill Jews, and either you or your family will be rewarded. And even that's a benefit, right? Because look at Islam. Being martyred is a good thing. Dying for the cause is a good thing. So incentive after incentive after incentive for the Palestinian people tells them, go and kill Jews. This is the only way to basically gain something. This is the life's purpose you should have. And as long as that is there, as long as that incentive doesn't get challenged, they will go and do it time after time. And that hasn't changed. This ceasefire actually told them the same thing. Go and commit violence and you'll be rewarded again.
And how many people in Western countries who wave the Palestinian flag recognize that that is what they think? Because it's been the ability to evade or dismiss or ignore or diminish that, which has also been frankly staggering, isn't it? I mean, the ability to hide the evidence that is the motivation of Gazans and Palestinians, together with the actions of UNRWA or what happens in hospitals or schools in terms of complicity with Hamas, in terms of underground structure and cabling and all of that. The ability to dismiss all that, to ignore it all, to not see the genocidal intent towards the Jews as being such an endemic feature of Palestinians, and a vocal one at that, and to dismiss all that evidence and still show your support for them as the victims. That's frankly, that's blown me away at people's ability to continue to do that. And yet here we are.
Well, with that, let's watch. I have one video, but I turned it into two clips, so we'll watch both of them from Traveling Israel. It's I think influencer might be a sort of the word, but basically a person from Israel talking about this for a long time and has been relatively good for a long time. So let's watch what he posted after this ceasefire.
A miracle in Gaza. Friends, you won't believe this. I'm so excited. Look at the headlines from October 8th. According to UNRWA, there is famine. Children are malnourished. And now look at the headlines from October 9th. UNRWA says there is enough food for 3 months in Gaza. Isn't that incredible? They suddenly found food for 3 months. If that's not a miracle, what else could it be? A lie. In the last 2 years, during the war, UNRWA and other organizations report famine, tens of thousands of starving children. And the moment a ceasefire is signed, suddenly food appears out of nowhere. And of course, the media spreads and has been spreading these lies for the last 2 years. Just look at the baklawas from yesterday. This must be the best famine ever.
Yeah, so this was the first clip, and is absolutely right. The fact is that we have been told that the famine is coming. The famine is, I mean, the famine was here as far as I remember. If I check the numbers last time, I think about I don't know, like 50,000 at this point. People should have died from starvation. If you go by sort of the parameters they have, we still have not a single one as far as aware. Whenever they show somebody who is sort of looks like a famine victim, it's always because of some disease that is the problem, not the lack of food. And suddenly, when there is a ceasefire, despite the fact that if there wasn't any food, it should take some time for the food to get in, unless it's really like magic that basically ceasefire happened and suddenly everybody has food. And I think it shows the main thing is that these calls for ceasefire when it comes to the humanitarian catastrophe was never about the fact, or it's not even the fact, it was never about that Palestinians people are suffering or anything in that regard. It was we simply want the end to the war, and anything that can make it so we'll use as a propaganda tool. And now that we do have a ceasefire, we can just say, oh, everything is good now. Let's just continue. And I mean, they've said there's enough food for 3 months. I assume that if this ceasefire falls through, suddenly everybody's starving again. Jonathan?
Well, I mean, if Palestinians were starving, if Palestinian cities were being bombed, did the Palestinians ever consider that perhaps it was because of their own choices, their own decisions, their own culture? That was like kind of never seemingly on the table at all. So there was just a full-blown propaganda effort to make Israel seem like the aggressor from the get-go, despite the fact that Israel was completely attacked, its non-military civilians held hostage. It was Israel that from the get-go that was seen in the world stage, for years now as the bad guy for all the reasons that we've discussed. So, just the way that the raid on Entebbe, I think, inspired generations of young Israelis to go serve and protect their country. That's what I feel is a real long-term damage here. Is the 7-year-old to 11-year-old young men now who've seen that violence works, violence against Jews in Israel works. It makes you a hero in your community, and that's the road on which they should follow.
Yeah, and it's the same kind of, again, talking about incentives. The Palestinian people have been told, you deserve this food. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not the government that you've supported that it's the fault. It's not the fact that you yourself have celebrated October 7th, have celebrated the killing of innocent Israelis. No, that's not the problem. It's simply, Israel should provide. And Israel is playing that game. The fact that Israel has been providing the aid, it gave up its moral right to basically not do anything. From day one, it should have cut out any electricity going in, any water going in, and we would see that,
Yes.
we
Could have been over in 3 weeks.
Yeah, Palestinians would actually finally get a choice. Would you rather surrender or would you rather starve? And I always say, if you have a population that would rather starve than surrender, I don't know what you want to do with that population. I mean, take a person who would rather like kill himself than, stop killing somebody else. I mean, what do you want to do? What do you expect that person to produce ever, or to be any contribution to himself rather than to broader society? Marco?
Yeah, well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? When you're talking about rational agents, you cannot call the Gazans and the Palestinian rational agents because they act like medieval people. I mean, we've been there we've been there in the Middle Ages. Yeah, 800 years ago, we were just the Palestinian acting according to the will of a god, doing things because the gods effectively told you how to behave and what kind of morality you had to follow. But we got over the religion side of things. We understood that human life depends on productivity, on rationality, on realizing what's in front of you, and we moved on. we civilized. We discovered that freedom is the necessary condition to make a better life for a human being, and that's why freer countries are richer countries, are more productive, they're more technologically advanced. It's not a coincidence that every single dictatorship, theocracy, look at USSR, it collapsed under its own weight because it wasn't free enough to allow its own people to produce the wealth that was required for it to survive. So you cannot expect these people who live in a medieval culture to behave in a rational way. They're just not there. They just do not accept modern civilization. That's why this is a fight between a rational, modern, productive way of life, which is Israeli, versus the savages in the Palestinian camps. People do not understand that you cannot, faced with a choice, you cannot support the savages. You cannot support the people who want to cast you back in the Middle Ages by giving up all the hard earned kind of benefits that our culture provides. But people don't seem to think like that. People don't seem to think at all. They just react on a emotion basis. I saw, incidentally, it wasn't quite a poll, but it was a sort of survey that showed that the penetration of social media, Instagram, is more popular among the lefties, people who are Marxist or whatever, because they are the kind of people who react by emotion. They see a picture and they decide, I'm going to act because the picture motivates me. They don't stop and think and see, why am I seeing this picture? What caused this picture? What caused the situation? They just react on an emotional basis. And, we all know that emotions are not a tool of cognition. An emotion acting according to an emotion, it doesn't mean that you're going to take the right action. And these people, they emote, they see the Gazan child, even if the picture has been most of the time a piece of propaganda built to make you feel like that, they react. They don't stop and think. And that's part of the problem.
Yeah, reality and truth doesn't matter to these people. Do we think for a moment that for those supporters of Greta Thunberg who saw the evidence of the tweet that she forwarded showing a Palestinian claiming it was a Palestinian victim of famine in one of the pictures when it was an Israeli hostage held in a tunnel by Gazans and Hamas? Do you think she'd be hurt in any way in the public eye by her supporters, by such a horrendous error, which exposes firstly her lack of knowledge and secondly the distortion of reality and the inversion of the truth to its exact opposite? No, she won't be, because reality and truth doesn't matter. It's the narrative that matters to them, and that's what supersedes everything. And this lie of victimhood that's been spread across the Palestinians when they're the perpetrators of the violence. Jonathan, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, and I totally agree. And Bonnie, who is one of our YouTube members, we're here 7 days a week with original programming inspired by Ayn Rand's objectivism. That's our goal. Get you to learn about objectivism, read Miss Rand's work, and interpret the day's events through the perspectives that she lays out in her work. So thanks to Bonnie, who's a YouTube member, I think it's £5 a month. Bonnie pointed out that they, meaning the Palestinians, they've chosen force rather than reason for generations, and we should have given them what they have chosen to value, force. And Daniel, we also got a generous super chat from Knows Too Much. You wanna read that?
We have a super chat from Knows Too Much. Thank you so much. He says, Islamo-Nazis are taught once more that evil jihad against Israel pays off. Now hostile Islamic countries will get a direct foothold in Gaza, and they'll get even more aid and support from the world. Shame. I think the Arab states, I always say that there's nobody that hates Palestinians more than other Arab states. But they are a good tool to fight Israel. Nobody wants to take care of Palestinians, but everyone wants them to stay here and fight Israel. So yeah, absolutely. And just quickly on the earlier about the rational actor thing, again, and this is my problem with the concept, because rational doesn't mean like actually rational. It just means properly answering to incentives. So like a child that cries and that gets its way, if it's a rational actor, it basically is told that if you keep crying, this is the way to get your game. And in the same way, Palestinians have been told that if you commit violence, this is a way. Now, this is of course irrational, but it properly answers to incentives, right? The incentives are simply commit more violence and you'll get rewarded. And this is the biggest problem I think we have in with the Palestinians is they are being told to basically not be rational in a sense.
Yeah, and pursue more of this. I mean, there will be more abductions. There will be more. Maybe it quiets down for a couple of months or even a couple of years. But I think the good news is that Israel, thankfully, keeps on being Israel. If you looked around your home, I think you'd marvel at how much technology at some point was developed in Israel by Israelis. This is a tiny sliver of a country that certainly one of the top 10 economies in the world. And it's been a great stock market to invest in as well. So, I mean, ideas are what move the world, right? I mean, this is what Rand's ideas. That's one of Miss Rand's big ideas. And, Israel is that modern rights-respecting democracy that I think even given its hostile neighbors will continue to prosper, will continue to thrive and push humanity forward.
Yeah, I'm wondering how Hamas 300 is doing these days. Probably not but although technically, yeah, now the Hamas stock is rising, but because they got this ceasefire, so Hamas popularity will be rising. That's a interesting thing to add. But let's watch the second part of the clip from Traveling Israel.
And here is something else that happened yesterday in Gaza that the media won't show you. The chant Khaybar Khaybar Ya Yahud is a call for genocide against Jews. Khaybar was a Jewish tribe that Muhammad slaughtered. That's how they celebrate the ceasefire in Gaza, with passionate calls to murder Jews. The Jews are celebrating the return of hostages, celebrating life. The Arabs in Gaza are celebrating with the chance for the killing of Jews. Share this video because the ceasefire may be in effect, but their lies are still working. See you in the next one. Yalla bye.
So yeah, we have a clip of Palestinians doing this chant Khaybar Ya Yahud, which is, I mean, he explained it, is basically calling for the killing of Jews because it references an event where the original Prophet Muhammad killed Jews. This is the Palestinian society right now. It's celebrating the killing of Jews. It's not celebrating the coming of aid or the end of the Israeli genocide. No, it's celebrating, okay, we get to live another day to try again and try to kill Jews. Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Israel 3 times and met a lot of young Israelis and talk with them. And these are people with, by and large, from what I observed, a real commitment to life. Their goal isn't to sit around and talking about how to obliterate the Palestinians or any of their neighbors, the sciences or the arts, and they're pursuing values. And it just kind of shows the differences in ideas, and the fact that amongst these Palestinians, even amid a ceasefire, the murder of Jews is still, top of their list. That it's part of their DNA, if you will, although I certainly don't believe that in terms of the choices that they've made and they will continue to make, which is why the ceasefire itself is such a bad idea.
Marco?
Yeah, and then now the choice they have is, shall we change our direction or shall we keep following our hero Mohammed? I mean, it's a human choice, isn't it? They can create a new society where Hamas doesn't rule their lives, when they can be as rich and as prosperous as Israel, if they choose to go down the route of apply their mind to the problem of survival, being productive. But because of the culture they are, because of the kind of mentality and teaching that they've been given since childhood, that's very unlikely. And that's why, in a way, the total occupation of Gaza by Israel would have given them the chance to reshape the minds, reshape the culture, just as Jonathan mentioned, like the Americans did in Japan. But now, by having this kind of hodgepodge international Muslim states intervening in the ruling of Gaza, that clearly is not going to be the case, is it? I mean, most people involved will be terrorist states or supporter of terrorism, like Qatar, or even this the best of the Arab state, the Saudis, are still far off being anywhere near a free democracy or a free country, are they? They still behead people, they still stone people. So how can anything good come of it? The only thing, as I mentioned yesterday, is that by having the presence of all these countries in the Strip of Gaza will mean that Israel will not be able to strike back Hamas if they were to use one of these bases as one of these places as their base to attack Israel. Israel will not be able to attack a compound belonging to Iraq or the Saudis in Gaza if Hamas decides to throw rockets from there. And that's, again, comes from the compromise of Israel towards this kind of monsters, really, this kind of terrorists whose only interest is to kill Jews. But you mentioned earlier on the famine. Well, I was in Italy a few days ago, and there was a piece on Gaza, because they're obsessed with Gaza, and they actually showed, probably they didn't get the memo from the UN that they have to show Gaza in famine terms, but they had a beautiful market there, and people eating and selling stuff. And I looked at Richard and said, hang on, when were we supposed to have famine in Gaza? And that was days ago, way before the ceasefire even kicked off. So,
and this was fresh footage. This wasn't historical footage.
Current footage. And again, then I remembered a few months ago when a terrorist was killed in Gaza in a bar while he was drinking his coffee or whatever. Now, how many places where famine is present has bars, functioning bars, where people gather and have a coffee or whatever? So this goes to show that all this kind of propaganda that we were fed in the last 2 years, it's exactly what it is. Exactly what we knew it was, just propaganda designed to put Israel in a bad position, to make Israel take the altruistic morality and effectively sacrifice itself for the benefit of the Palestinians.
And watching Italian TV, it was absolutely loaded with a celebration of the heroes of the flotilla. And as being, essentially the heroes of altruism, aren't they? And of course, supporting the cause of terrorism, which is exactly what they were doing. And when we walked past La Scala, there was loads of Palestinian flags waving in front of the Opera House to constantly ram it down people's throats. I think, in yesterday's show, I speculated about some of these pictures we were seeing in the newspapers of children in Gaza celebrating the ceasefire. I said, how do you know they're not celebrating the death of Jews or the chance to kill more Jews? And then you see this clip here, which exactly fits with that. And it's the inability for people to recognize that is the driving morality, the driving intent behind them, as I said before. That evasion is our problem here, and until we can tackle that, we're not going to advance.
And I'll just say, do you think if Israel had 4 or 5 days after the attack hit the Gaza extraordinarily hard, said we are not ending until we have complete and total submission and victory? Do you think that kafia would be the hip, accessory it is among Greta and all these other, young people? That cause, the Palestinian cause now, is seen as, I remember what Dr. Peikoff said, that the ecology movement is what replaced the Vietnam War. And now it's like the plight of the Palestinians is what has replaced the ecology movement as, the cause de rigueur of the young progressives. And, it should be an environment where people say, kafia, oh, no, I wouldn't want to be pictured in that. Instead, it's become a status symbol.
Yeah, and this is that earlier on we're talking about the 2008 crisis. That generated in the early 10s the 99% movement, the Occupy Wall Street movement, which then moved towards the environmentalism, Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, and all this kind of clowns. And now has morphed again towards the pro-Hamas, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic brigade, which is frankly mainly probably supported by foreign state. I cannot prove it, but from what I've seen in the Italian press, China is so behind it. China, and certainly Russia, and probably Iran as well, are so providing some ammo, if not cash, for these people. Because let's face it, to organize all these thousands of people, all these thousands of flags, it costs money, and somebody has to pay for it.
And there's a fair number of hammer and sickles among those flags being flown among the Palestinian ones on the marches of Milan and in Rome.
Which is the common denominator in all the other events I mentioned, from 2010 going back to the 70s, the ecology movement, the hippies, and back as far as you like.
Yeah, and all those movements are fundamentally, they started as anti-capitalist, but they turned into their final form, anti-Western. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys have followed the recent scandal with the Riyadh Comedy Festival, where a bunch of American comedians went into Saudi Arabia to basically do a stand-up for the Saudi family. And one of the person who got the biggest flag for it and also talked about it the most was Bill Burr. Sadly, one of my favorite comedian, not much anymore. And the way he spoke about it, I mean, Bill Burr has been a long time sort of like anti-billionaire thing. He said that basically, that billionaires should be basically slaughtered, but had no problem to go with well, I guess technically the sort of family are probably trillionaires, so maybe when you get that much, then maybe it becomes irrelevant. But he did that, and he said, well, Saudi Arabia is basically the same. They had, I don't know what he said, like KFC. They have the Cheesecake Factory. I just imagine it's just a bunch of people killing everybody. No, they are just like us. And you think we didn't do anything wrong in the past? So it's this fundamentally like anti-Western philosophy that has been has been getting stronger and stronger. And I wanted to go into one last thing, although any comments on this specifically? I'm not sure if you guys seen it in the news. So I had one more clip that I wanted to play, and so just remember what was the chant, the Khaybar Ya Yahud, which is calling basically for killing of Jews. And here we have another clip from Gaza.
هيبة يا يهود هيبة يا يهود جيش محمد سي يهود جيش محمد سي يهود هيبة يا يهود هيبة يا يهود.
I guess the things in the background kind of told me, no, this was of course not Gaza. This was England. This was, I think, specifically Luton in United Kingdom. So this is what the West, or what is being allowed, what is being tolerated in the West. It's killing for the death of Jews in Western states. So this is not just Gaza problem. This increased calling, like straight up calling for the death of Jews. Something that I think we will see in the upcoming days is people might think, well, now with the ceasefire, there will be the anti-Semitic crimes, the killing of Jews we've seen in pretty much every single Western nation, synagogues getting attacked, people getting murdered, that will stop, right? Since we have a ceasefire. And something that I think we will see the opposite of is increase in violence. Because what is the ceasefire? It's not the end of violence. it's simply Israel surrendering, Israel saying, no, you can kill us and we will not do anything about it. Jonathan, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It will encourage more violence against Israel in the West. And a great book to pick up is Winning the Unwinnable War, edited by Alain Journeau. It's about probably 10 or 15 years old right now. It goes into so many of these ideas in depth, which is why winning the war against Islamic totalitarianism is not impossible, but it's been fought, and once again by Israel, in the wrong way.
Marco, any thoughts? Actually, there is one more thing that I wanted to bring up. So I'll go to Marco and Richard, then we'll quickly cover that one more thing, and then I think we can start wrapping up. But Marco, any thoughts on somebody living in the UK?
I hadn't seen that clip before, but I'm not surprised. I mean, here in Britain, we have allowed this kind of hate to go unchecked for way too long. Thankfully, there is a pushback now. We are seeing people, decent people, who are starting to say, hang on a second, this is not what I signed for. I never voted for this. And we're seeing this kind of episodes, like the clowns chanting for the death to the IDF, and all the clowns the evil clowns in the streets chanting for, from the river to the sea. Today, our stupid mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, actually said something like, the chanting from the river to the sea is not anti-Semitic, depends on the context. I mean, talk about having your head up your rear end.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you would consider it anti-Semitic when it's being yelled by somebody actively killing Jews.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, he's endorsing the chant, so long as you get your context right, whatever that means. So long as you talk about Israel being wiped out, but don't physically kill Jews in front of him, that would be sufficient, it would seem.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One more thing I wanted to bring up, and this was more for just my fascination, and it's this talking about the Nobel Peace Prize. So apparently the nominations happened, I think earlier this week, but like finally submitted, and now we like have the results. I didn't check who the name specifically, but the Nobel Peace Prize specifically was won by somebody in the Venezuelan opposition, and we have both Netanyahu sort of saying like this is like injustice, this is like a terrible thing, since clearly Trump should have gotten it. We know that longtime Trump has this obsession with Nobel Peace Prize. And I mean, Jonathan, any thoughts on that? Because I couldn't imagine, generally when it comes to, it's hard to even imagine any award that I have any respect for because of both its history, but it's hard. I would be hard pressed to find something I have less respect for than Nobel Peace Prize. Something like Yasser Arafat getting one.
I mean, look up what Dr. Peikoff was asked whether Miss Rand would like to win the Nobel Prize. I believe Dr. Peikoff's response was that she would not accept it. She would not even have accepted it. But for Trump, it has been an obsession because Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize, so he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. And what's so shitty is that I think Israel has been strong-armed into a deal so that Trump could have another bit of evidence of why he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. So it's shameful for that reason. But to your point, I mean, what kind of second-hander needs that praise from anyone, let alone a group of socialists or left-leaning progressives?
Yeah, I mean, specifically, but I didn't even know how the Nobel Prizes actually work, but apparently it's the nominations work with like this council of like I think 5 people elected by the Norwegian parliament. So it's specifically like a Norwegian thing that just has the prestige of the sort of like international thing. Marco?
Yeah, well, I think even less worthwhile than the Nobel Peace Prize is probably the economy one, which is not even a Nobel one. It's just made up by somebody else that funds it. But yeah, the Peace Prize is the booby prize, really. It's the prize for lack of achievement. Usually it is won by people who actually do nothing, like Obama. What did he do? And the woman
people make the joke about Obama, but I checked it. He got the Nobel Peace Prize like weeks into office, like his first term.
He had the Nobel Peace Prize for being black. That's apparently enough.
And I think even nomination happened before he was even inaugurated.
Yeah, they don't think it's a farce. That actually exposed the whole farce. But this woman actually, she got it. The Venezuelan woman, Maria, I can't remember her name.
Maria Corina Machado.
Machado. She got it for promoting democracy and freedom in Venezuela. And last time I checked, Venezuela is still a socialist shithole. I mean, so she hasn't really done that much. Good for her. She's fighting a corner, but what's the story? I mean, I think even the EU won it once, didn't they? So,
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a farce.
And there's this argument that is that because Trump's big countering Venezuela and all its drug trafficking, I mean, against that this was a sort of way of, showing some support for Trump without giving it to Trump. So, they're giving it to somebody who's fighting the same battle he is. But it's pathetic, isn't it? It's children's playground stuff, fighting over a cup that is worth nothing.
I think somebody who's not going to win in next year is probably Tony Blair.
It's only somebody with zero self-esteem who needs that so-called acclaim so desperately.
Yeah, I think I've seen a clip on X when they were the head of the Nobel Prize committee was asked why didn't they either give it to Trump or why didn't they nominate Trump? And I think the answer was something, we only give it to people with integrity or some BS like that. And it's yeah, that's the standard for the Nobel Peace Prize of the past. Give me a break. Well, with that, Jonathan, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Thanks for their support of Ayn Rand Center UK, and check out my publication, a new textbook of Americanism, Ayn Rand on Politics, at Amazon.
Marco, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
I can't stress enough to whoever is watching this, read Ayn Rand, for the love of God, to make your life better. She shows how you can reach a morality which doesn't depend on altruism, it doesn't depend on somebody else's value, and how to protect freedom and make your life happier in the end. So if you love your life, read Ayn Rand.
And the only thing that people do to counter Ayn Rand is to smear or to try and erase her from existence. So read her in her own words, because then you get the truth. Don't take somebody else's discouragement from reading it. Have a look yourself. Within a few paragraphs, you'll be reading the truth for certain. And if you want to check out some of the other videos we've made, they're on the Briefly Objective sister channel to this. The link is in the description below. Check it out.
Somebody in the chat asks, which book, Richard?
I think if you start with Philosophy Who Needs It, the speech she did at West Point, she was the first woman to address the graduating cadets in West Point. And that's brilliant. And then take it from there, read The Fountainhead if you like fiction, or Atlas Shrugged if you like long books. But to be honest, whatever you read, it's gonna make you want to read more. So.
And that first essay about philosophy who needs it is crucial, because for much of my life I thought philosophy was a lot of old nonsense, and largely it is, except when you come to a philosophy that's designed for living on Earth, as hers is.
Yeah, read Fountainhead if you like fiction. Read Atlas Shrugged if you like non-fiction, soon to come. But if you'd like to see actual results of this philosophy, make sure to come to the Irreplaceable Spark Conference, starting in exactly 2 weeks and 1 day, on Saturday, October 25th, going until 26th. Jonathan will be among the speakers, so make sure to check out objectivism.co.uk to get your ticket. As I've said, you will be able to see people who use this philosophy and manage to achieve success in their personal and professional lives. So again, objectivism.co.uk. There's still time to get your tickets. It's in Southern California, specifically Orange County. So right next to the airport, so you can come very quickly.
You there.
With that, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow with another episode of the Daily Objective. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.